Welcome to Learn Visual Basics 6.0. This is tutorial 2 of part 1 and my name is Jim. In this project we're going to get a little more advanced. So if you've never used Visual Basics 6 before, then please start at tutorial 1. This tutorial is aimed towards someone who has just started out in Visual Basics but has played around with it a little bit before. Now in this episode we're going to be making an alarm clock, and this is what the finished product should look like. Before we start, I'm going to walk you through the basics or the principles behind the workings of this. Up the top is a clock, which we learnt to do in our first tutorial, and below that is 8:45, and that's our alarm set time. This basically works by starting a timer which then keeps asking, does the current time match the time below that we want our alarm to go off at? When it finally does match the time that the user has asked for the alarm to go off at, it'll call up another timer to start running, which contains a call for a wave file, in other words, our alarm sound. And that's pretty much it, except for a few other basic things along the way. Okay, so if you'd like to have a go at this project, the first thing we need you to do is go get yourself a wave file that you're going to be using for the sound of the alarm. So, just go to your favorite search engine and type in alarm.wave or bell.wave or buzzer.wave, whatever you like. The only constraints are that it must have the file extension of .wav, as MP3 or WMP will not work. Another handy hint for you is that you could always run a search on your own PC for wave files. All you have to do is press the start button, go down to search, and then type in .wav and then click search. Hundreds of these files will come up. Then all you got to do is go through them all and find a sound that you'd like. Just please make sure when you find the wave file that you want to use, you don't just take it out of its folder. You must right click on it, copy, and then paste it onto your desktop. After you've scored your wave file, then you make a folder and call it, say, alarm clock or project 2, whatever you like, and then put the file in that folder. Right? It's very important that this project stays in the same folder as the WAV file. If it doesn't, it won't be able to find it. Okay, I presume you've paused this tutorial, found yourself a wave file, made a folder and put it in it, okay, and we're ready to start. So the first thing we need to do is open our VB6 and click on Standard EXE. Get your pause button ready for this tutorial because we're going to be moving along fairly quickly. So, the next thing we need to do is make a label which our clock is going to be on. Then align the text to center. Remember, if you've never used VB before and you don't know what I'm talking about, please watch the first tutorial. It'll walk you through 90% of these commands. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is add a timer to our form. Then in the timer we're going to put label1.caption equals time. Then we're going to go into form load and turn the timer on by typing timer1.enabled equals true, and then enter, and underneath that we're going to type timer1.interval equals 1. The next thing we need to do is make two text boxes. One is going to be for the hours and the other one is going to be for the minutes. We could just use one box, but that leaves more chance of errors for the end user when setting the alarm time. Now I'm going to increase the size of the text in both boxes to size 18 and then justify them to center. I'm also going to type in a random number so it looks better when the form loads. I'm going to use 8 for the hours and 45 for the minutes. The next thing we need to do is put two option buttons on the form. That's the one below the command buttons. These are going to be for AM and PM. So we need to then change the caption for them to the first one should be AM and then the second one to PM. Following that, we need a status label. This is going to tell us whether the alarm is switched on or not. So just draw a normal label on the iFace, okay, and then we're going to change the caption to alarm is off. Then we're going to justify it to center. Remember, if you don't know how to change the captions on the labels or buttons, it's because you haven't watched my first tutorial. Okay, so that tutorial is called Learn VB6 101 Project 1 Part 1 through 4. Now the next thing we need is to put an on switch and an off switch on our iFace. This is going to turn the alarm on and off. We could use two buttons for this, but I think the labels are probably going to look a little bit better. So change the first label's caption to on and then justify it to center. Then the second label's caption to off and then justify it to center. So it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to change the background of the iFace to grey. This will help us see our labels and our buttons a little bit better. Now I'm going to make another label, and this is going to be used for the double dot that goes between the hour and the minute numerals. This is purely cosmetic. It'll just make our timer look a little bit better. Now I'm going to change the caption to the double dots and then justify it to center, and then change the front size to 18. I'm just going to tidy this form up a little bit, but don't be too concerned, as we can make it look more attractive later on. The next thing we're going to need is another text box. This will be hidden from view from the user, okay? So it doesn't matter what it's going to look like. It's going to tell our timer string whether it's AM or PM. Now there's probably a minimum of 500 different ways to make this alarm clock, but because these are beginning tutorials to try and teach you what to do, I've gone to a lot of effort to make things as simplistically as possible. Okay, so please remember, we're not going to win any design awards for the way we're writing this software, but on the other hand, it is going to work and it is very simple. So anyway, seeing that text box is not going to be seen, we won't bother doing anything to it like justifying it to center or making the text bigger or pretty or anything like that. All we're going to do is just shove it way down below, so when we adjust our iFace up, that it's not going to be seen. Now, the last thing we're going to do in this first part of the tutorial is we're going to add 3 more timers. I always put them in order from left to right, so I don't get confused which one is which. I'm just going to explain to you what all these timers are for. The first timer is obviously our clock at the top of our project. The second timer is going to be used for our match code. In other words, it's going to match the alarm time with the current time. The third timer is going to be used to detect whether AM or PM has been selected. And we're using a timer for this, so AM and PM can be changed even after the alarm has been set. The fourth and final timer will be switched on by the matching of our alarm time and our current time, and this will contain our call wave file. Now, any good programmer will tell you that's not the way it should be done, but this is the most simplistic way I could think of to make this program, and also it is going to work and it's going to get the job done. Now, in saying that, this concludes part 1 of tutorial 2. My name is Jim, and we'll catch you next time.